When you got started with Appcues, what was the opening that you saw in the market?
Yeah, well, Appcues is really born out of the pain that both myself and my co-founder felt. My co-founder Jonathan was an engineer at HubSpot. He grew frustrated that users weren't discovering the features that he was working on. And at the time, HubSpot really relied on their excellent support and services team to hop on calls with customers and walk them through all the functionality of the product. And in parallel with that, uh, in I was a growth marketer at the very early stages of growth at an ed tech company. And I started off by focusing a lot top of the funnel, really dialed in our ad campaigns and our website conversion. And then, as you may expect, users were signing up for the product and just like falling completely flat on their faces. And so I shifted my focus to work on activation. And when I did that, was experimenting with our onboarding, our in-product onboarding, and felt the frustration firsthand that unlike everything I was doing top of the funnel, there was just zero tooling to help us move faster. You had to start by writing a Jira ticket, wait a couple of weeks for it to get picked up, wait a couple of weeks for it to ship, wait a couple of weeks for it to measure. And it just felt like there had to be a better way to do this. And so it was those shared frustrations that really brought Jonathan and I together to get Appcues off the ground.
So that was back in like 2013 or something, right?
Yeah.
So you started because there was nothing. How long did it take for competition to spring up?
Well, when we started, there was already one incumbent, I guess, in the space called WalkMe. Um, but now I think the market has developed where there are a lot of different people doing what we do today, and some of that happened in our first 2 years, but I think it's actually accelerated a lot. Where now over the past few years, it just feels like there's a new competitor popping up every month or every quarter.
If we look at the SaaS landscape in general, in over the last 10 years, the number of SaaS companies has increased around like 50 times,
Yeah.
which is crazy. So in while building and plotting your building app queues and plotting your next move, how much attention do you pay to competition, and does that influence your decisions?
Yeah. I like to think of it more as market awareness rather than like awareness on competitors. Um, you, you know, uh, we are aware of what our competitors are doing, right? But I think that there's a fine line between that awareness and getting distracted by it, right? We always want to know what we want to be best at, and when a competitor releases a feature or does something that we're not doing, um, that's just the tip of the iceberg to understanding our market better. So the next thing that we want to do, if we see signal that, hey, we're losing deals to this competitor because of this reason, let's not get distracted by that particular competitor or that particular feature, but let's dig in deeper. Let's go talk to their customers. Let's find out what they like or dislike about that. Let's inform our roadmap and prioritize our roadmap based on what we hear from those customers or what we hear from the market. Not just what we see a competitor doing.
Well, let's go back a few years. So you built the first version of
Mhm.
AppQues. There was you and WalkMe. You built the first version of the product based on your insight and the needs that you had discovered. How long did it take before you achieved some success, and then what happened then?
Yeah. So we built the first version of the product, and we're frankly like having trouble gaining traction with it. We had some early sort of friends and family customers who were beta customers giving us feedback, and then the initial point where we started getting traction is we decided to start marketing. Frankly, like before or even like during the very inception days of having that product, and we started writing something called the User Onboarding Academy, and this was back in the summer of 2014. And when we did that, because we were having trouble getting people to latch onto this, like, this is a problem I need to solve. So we were just like, okay, let's just go start writing and evangelizing this problem, getting more people interested in it, trying to shift the focus of the market. And I remember we wrote a few posts, and we were like 4 posts in, and I think our fifth post went viral on Hacker News and Growth Hackers at the time, which was a big community back then. And we got like 1,500 blog signups in the course of a couple months after starting to write that. And that's when we really knew that we were onto something, gaining traction. Some of those people were converting into free trialers, and we were just generating a lot of buzz and noise, and customers, dozens of customers at that time for the product.
What channels, besides those viral hits, what other channels did work for you back then, and how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've really stayed committed to content marketing and to evangelism and education of the market. So the great thing about content marketing is it compounds over time, right? So we started writing in 2014. To a certain extent, we're still seeing the benefits of some of those even early pieces that we wrote 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And that's the core of our demand function today, right? And we've augmented that with some events and a very small amount of outbound, but most of our demand in marketing really comes through content.
You guys have quite a bit of brand awareness, based on my personal observation in this space. Uh, some years ago, when I was looking into choosing between different onboarding softwares, I remember distinctly that back then you were significantly pricier than some of the other companies. How has your can you tell me about your pricing strategy, and were you intentional being like an upmarket option, or what was the thinking there?
Yeah, well, I think it depends. I think we're actually priced in the middle of the market. We have some folks who are a little bit more enterprise than us. Um, we have tried to have a strategy where we have a wide breadth of customer shapes and sizes. We have customers with 5 employees who sign up completely no touch, through a free trial. Um, they never talk to a sales rep, and they're paying us a couple $100 a month on a credit card, all the way up to some very big, Fortune 500s enterprise companies who are paying us, 6 figures a year. And so our pricing strategy, which by the way is not perfect, and we'll continue to tweak it as we go, is really we're trying to capture our customers at all sorts of different price points, right? With our essentials plan that is really meant for those small startups, our growth plan, which is meant for mid-market growing companies, and then our enterprise plan at the top. And so I think we've taken a lot of inspiration from some dev tools. You think about a company like Twilio or Datadog. These are companies who have hobbyists paying them tens of dollars a month, all the way up through enterprises who are paying them probably millions of dollars a month. And we're really trying to achieve the same sort of breadth in our pricing as well.
Is there an ICP that you're going after that is also the ICP of other players in the market? Are you going for the same type of customer?
It's interesting. I haven't thought about whether our ICP is the same as a competitor, but yeah, our ICP is a curious product or marketing practitioner within a B2B SaaS business with 50 to 500 employees. And we we have customers who have fewer employees, more employees, but that's really our sweet spot.
There, as you said, there's a bunch of companies doing the exact same thing as you guys are doing, and new ones propping up. What have you guys done to succeed where others haven't succeeded as much?
Yeah, well, I'll start on the marketing side. And again, going back to those early days of Appcues when we started writing the User Onboarding Academy, I think we learned so much what um, evangelism and educating the market can do for our business and do for our brand position. Um, I think we are recognized um, as leaders in the space. We hear from customers all the time that they find us through our blog, that they love what we've written, that even well before they signed up for the product or certainly became a customer, that they were using things like our product launch planner, that they were learning with our user onboarding academy and stuff like that. So we have created we have elevated our brand in a way that has separated us from certainly some of the newer players on the scene. Um, and then beyond that, on from the product standpoint, we've really just tried to narrow down what we want to be best at. And for us, we want to be the best experience builder in the market. And so we've tried to double and triple down on design flexibility being the most important parts of Appcues. And again, this is a journey, so we still have a lot more to go there. But um, in these crowded markets, I think it's really important to just make sure you're aware of how you want to distinguish yourselves and stay very focused.
Yeah, when I look at your on your website under the resource section, it looks like you have a whole bunch of content projects. Let's say. So was it that you saw that first success with that academy, and then you said, okay, let's double down on that. Let's build more similar things.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, a lot of it has just been iterative over time, right? We've tried to have conversations with our customers inform what not only what we're building into the product, but what we're writing on the blog as well, right? So you take some of the newer ones. Of course, I mentioned User Onboarding Academy was our first, but you take some of the newer ones like the Product Launch Planner. Um, we heard from our customers that launches were something that everybody does a little bit differently. People wanted more of a standard playbook. They wanted more prescription. They wanted to learn from who's the best at this. Not to say that that's us, but um,
Mm.
and and so we've tried to let the market lead us in the right direction with our content strategy too.
What other aspects of marketing, are you focused on? Are you doing anything, consciously around building awareness that you exist that goes beyond, organic content like brand ads or direct response
Yeah,
ads?
to be honest, it hasn't been much of a focus. I think as SaaS businesses scale, brand becomes much more of an emphasis to um, at larger scales, right? So it will become more of a focus of ours going forward, and I think the cornerstone of that brand is some of the content and evangelism that we've done, right? We've created a brand where people associate us as sort of trusted experts, domain experts in these topics, and that's how we want to continue building that.
So you guys recently raised a new round of money. So with this cash in the bank, are you betting more on building more product, going more down the looking at what, let's say, Pendo Walk Me are doing and becoming a bigger suite of tools, or you focus more on brand? What are you betting on?
Well, I think a little bit of everything. But the number one focus is product. We still have a ton of product to build. I think if you think of what the core problem that Appcues solves today is around improving adoption, and that's done, with user onboarding, ongoing lifecycle engagements, feature announcements, what have you. I think the story of where our product is going in the future is moving beyond adoption, and solving more problems for our customers, and solving those alongside our first module of adoption. Um, and so we will be expanding the footprint of the Appcues product, but unlike what some other people have done, where they've expanded sort of outside of the product experience, way more to analytics and road mapping and things like that, we just we feel that there's still a ton of pain that manifests for our customers inside of their products, right? And so we want to solve more of that pain and grow our footprint that way.
Hmm. So you've been at it now, what, like 8 years or something, or more even. Which bets did not pay off?
Mm.
What are some of the regrets?
Yeah, I think there was a couple pivotal moments in our history. One, I'll go back to that early inception stage, right? We had a handful of early adopters. And we started writing the user onboarding academy, and we got to our first 30 customers, let's call it. These were all very sophisticated practitioners, right? They were power users of other product tools, analytics suites, things like that. And they came in knowing exactly what they needed to improve, right? They really had their metrics and their analytics dialed in. And then as we started scaling, we started bringing on customers who weren't as sophisticated, and some of these customers like weren't using analytics. And we would get these questions like, well, how do I know if this is working, or how do I even know what to improve next? I don't know which features actually correlate with long-term retention or activation, or what have you. And a bunch of them kept asking us like, hey, why don't you guys build analytics into Appcues? And we were sort of confronted with this decision, like, okay, do we become an analytics company ourselves? And this was right around the time, I don't know how much you are familiar with like the product analytics category, but I think it was 2015 that Amplitude came out with this free tier for up to 10 million monthly events. And at the time, it was really disruptive to some companies who were already in that space. Companies like Kissmetrics was big at the time, Mixpanel, and we sort of looked at what was happening in that market, and we said like, hey, we think product analytics will become like just as ubiquitous as web analytics, right? Like, you look, like every website is using Google Analytics or something. And guess what? We know we want to like stay focused on the experience side. That's where we want to be best. That's kind of why our customers love us today. It's because of design flexibility. Like if the analytics side is just going to become a race to the bottom, why don't we just not do any of that? Pursue a partnership strategy, um, and and just focus on the experience builder and being the best there. And I think, so that was, again, 6 years ago, or maybe that decision happened over the course of a year. So 5 years ago, I think looking back on that, we were partially right. We were wrong that product analytics would become completely ubiquitous. Um, the I'm still shocked at how few SaaS products or digital products are tooled with product analytics. Um, there's so many people still today who are using Appcues, and don't really know what their metrics are and what they're trying to move. And then we looked at our metrics, our retention metrics and customer satisfaction metrics, and we saw that, okay, companies that are using us in tandem with a heap or a mixed panel or an amplitude, who we have great integrations with and great partnerships with, frankly, their retention is way stronger. Those customers are happier, um, but only 60% of our customers are have one of those tools, right? So ultimately what we had to do is we had to backtrack on that decision a little bit. And our vision is still not to become an analytics company, right? We're trying to resist every urge to do that. But I think what we learned is that focus is great, and it's great to know what we want to be best at. And for us, that is product experiences and design flexibility. But we also need to provide a complete solution. And you can't improve what you can't measure in the first place. And we also can't outsource our success to somebody else, right? We can't say, hey, we're not going to be successful unless amplitude or heap or mixed panel are going to be successful. And I think in those early to mid days of Appcues, because we decided to just completely ignore analytics, I like to say that using Appcues was somewhat akin to if you were using MailChimp, but you didn't know who you were about to send emails to, and you didn't know how many people received them, and whether they became customers, and what the downstream effect was. And so, we've started building more analytics into Appcues today. It is by no means at parity with some of the great product analytics solutions out there, nor do we intend it to be. Um, but that was definitely something that we got wrong with the sort of bet that we made of where the market was going.
So, if I were to sum up some of the things that you're saying here, so because of the early success in content, and because you were early to the market, people are aware that you exist, which is a major win. Then you produced a bunch of content. You have kind of an SEO mode, pretty decent domain authority, and then in this product strategies like to be, let's say, the best at the product experience, product adoption. And so there's a strategic trade-off here where you didn't double down on the analytics side and really focused on the experience optimization side. Then,
Yeah.
is am I missing anything else from the bigger business strategy here?
Um, no. Well, no, I don't think that you're missing it. Uh, yeah, I mean that was a trade-off that we made, and again, it for us today, uh, it it has not been so much like a pivot of like, hey, we need to go into the analytics space. It's it has just come with the goal that we need to provide a complete product. And for
Mhm.
the 40% of our customers who are not using one of those tools, right, we need to build for them as well and allow them to have the capabilities, um, while far more primitive than something like if they were using a dedicated product analytics solution. They still need to have the visibility into their user base, into how people are using their product, into whether their app queues experiences are successful or not. And and that was the lesson that we learned.
And you need to become a full product because companies are outgrowing you a certain segment,
Some
or
were, yeah, some definitely were. Some were, started used app queues and said like, hey, this is awesome, but I need analytics. I'm going to move to a different solution. Um, and so our retention was certainly way higher within those companies that were using us in tandem with some of our analytics partners. But now that we've introduced some analytics capabilities ourselves, and again, far more primitive than what you would expect of a dedicated analytics suite, um, that retention profile has really changed. And so that's where our product has become much more complete. in a way that, that signal that we are getting from those early adopters is just very different than the signal that we saw from some less sophisticated customers that we're bringing on today.
Coming back to the competitive landscape, bunch of new players entering the market all the time, as you said, some formidable competitors already. And so if we look at just the fact sheet, features that you have, benefits that you provide, also the messaging on your website, it's a lot like everybody else, which is, of course, not just your problem. It's just industry at large has this differentiation problem, I guess, of answering the question, why us, and how we're going to win. So since you guys probably going to expect to be around 5 and 10 and maybe more years from now as well, are you building moats? What are you thinking? How are you thinking? How are you thinking about building more differentiation and building more reasons to choose you over others?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually a very good time for us to be focused on this question because, as you mentioned, we did just raise this round of capital, and I think it's our job in this crowded market to make that differentiation much more clear. So let me tell you what it is today, right? And today, what we hear from our customers is that they love Appcues because it feels like a native extension of their product rather than a foreign guide living inside of it. And if I'm really being intellectually honest about that position, we're probably inches ahead today, not miles ahead, right? And so where we are going is a place where we don't want to cover our weaknesses as much. I mean, we just sort of talked about that. Analytics being one of our weaknesses, it was important for us to cover it so that we could provide a complete product to our customers. And we will certainly keep building some analytics, but the biggest, boldest bets that we are going to make are going to be doubling and tripling down on that strength of design flexibility, right? So that's where we are most focused. That's where a year from now, it's our job to make that differentiation way clearer than it is today, that anybody can look at our market and say that, wow, Appcues is not inches ahead. They are miles ahead. They're doing stuff that's very innovative, that's very different. And we just want to get to a place where if somebody's coming into this market and what they're focused on most is analytics, that there's probably a different direction that they're gonna go in. They're probably gonna choose our competitor Pendo. But if what they care about most is experience, and they want the most flexible experience builder, that the choice is obvious that it needs to be Appcues for that, and that's where we want to double down.